Hello, I'm making this recording on the lands of the Bunurong people in Seaford, Victoria. I recognise the elders past, present and emerging, acknowledging that their sovereignty over these lands and waters has never been ceded, and they are engaged in ongoing care for land and culture. I also want to thank Amanda Anastasi, who invited me to read at La Mama Poetica this evening. That event has been cancelled, wisely I believe, because of concern over the coronavirus. I think most of us are doing what we can to slow the spread of the virus in the community so that in weeks and months to come the health system can cope. And because this is a time of uncertainty, I want to begin with a couple of poems that engage us in our interconnectedness with a more than human world and the kindness and sensitivities we can experience there. Night gusts with house and flowering gum. After Oma Seika, what it is to be holy, a poem that appears in his book, The Lost Arabs. In the billow of the pre-midnight quarter hour, I put aside my book, having recovered the holy in sense. Flesh is a genuflection before the immense tangle of history in bodies that seek the solace of tact. I spill into sleep's mist stitch. Now every possum is awake in the canopy like a child persuading a parent. Into the curl of recall I fold the forget. Remedy takes off on the wind like a ban. The white shopping bag, breath-filled, not quite alive. And the second poem is Things Fall Away. That previous poem is to be published in Ireland, and I thank Lisa Gorton. This poem appeared in Overland last year, and I thank Toby Fitch. Things fall away the moment a tree consoles with its rooted stem that stands and asserts what you also bear toward the coherence of earth. A mutual ken crosses species between things that travel and things that stay in place. Leaves give wind its multiple voice as they shift your long recollection of a soul's green night. You are again a girl. Skip, skip, skip the tour on the pavement. Hop, hop, hop over chalked lines. You retreat from old need. A dog rests her head in your lap. A magpie seems to know how you feel about song. And this poem appeared in an issue of Not Very Quiet that was on gender performance. Called Up. Around 1970, I wondered, would I be brave enough to be a conscientious objector? In mind, I was a youth who might be an aeronautical engineer or a pilot, in liturgical dress trading for souls. I studied the underside of leaves, lay below unhurried cumulus. My father, on reading the intro to a book I admired, said approvingly, "She writes like a man." I glowed in solidarity at the compliment and spilt tears at a priest's first mass. Could I too have been chasuble, raising bread above a crown, bell for ear? There's a signal in silence, my grandmother declared. I can smell the rain coming. 3 generations of mothers and daughters on the back porch. It came. Now there's a name for it. Ground reaches toward desire, petrichor, I specie into place beside a creek. They returns to singular and slips a downy child between thighs. Once I said to a therapist, I feel like a man in a woman's body, trying it on. Afterbirth splatters on the canots. Membranes grow plumes. I think about charity as if faith and hope were empty staves. Such a music is withheld as other eyes work women. What if that enchantment with an egret had been requited? Now I'm going to read quite a long poem that appeared in my collection White on White and also in Australian Book Review. And it's called Prelude to a Voice. When Oedipus sank his thought into a rip for a riddle, the currents were shift and greet before Antigone was. He spoke to me of egrets. I talked of a common tongue. His kiss was as alien and familiar as yes, when yes was not a self-preserving word. The sun walked over our roof. Roof metal loosened its belt, like old Europe at the table when Diotima left. A creature with wings tucked and haunches of a croc slouched the length of the gravelled drive. Its face was stone, balanced on stone, and had a theorist's turn. 3 ravens followed. This was not the dream of a true speech. The other side of invasion would not be gauged as a foreign tongue. Flies rubbed their legs, instruments pitched to keep me tense. Magpies proposed what multiple voices might dwell in a thing like truth. From deep creek the frogs seemed a lullaby. I thought of a ditch, in short bursts, beads of water on a string. At the point of dissolution, I was wrong. I could not contain the songs of magpies or frogs, or the wind that spoke in what the eye saw of the tree. The leaves turned east as the limbs swayed. My voice was timid, less in its tone than in the way it sprang across the paddock at a sight of a walker on the road. When skin dressed in voice, a syntax and tenor were struck close to the sinew. The body shivered, gut and bone. To listen was to walk into a forest. To hear was to skirt water-filled ruts and in sunny patches to keep an eye out for snakes, while carrying the burden of water in a steel flask, as if bearing the urn of all our deaths. To heed was to see a sign, half effaced by rain, the only legible word, burning. I could not tie language to butterflies, who were swift in their orange-black, too swift for me to notice the pattern guessed, having seen the wings pinned. I climbed a gravelled slope. Breath came fast. I placed my feet with care on the descent, tracked a custom not yet formed. I remembered an egret. Her filigree was caught by the breeze. Her call was strident when she flew. And given the situation last January, December, January, February, of the bushfires in many parts of Australia, and particularly down in East Gippsland, which I guess were the closest to us. I want to read a poem that was written in relation, I think it was to the 2005-2006 fires. Cinders. 1. It feels like the end of the world. We breathe in the ash of the bush. In swollen days and lighter hours, the northeast wind arranges land's flag upon the bier of the city. It is hard not to think in cliché. Trumpets sound as the horizon disappears beneath the pall. 2. There are more birds in the garden, but today is tropical, the wind still. Words stick like fingers to the keys. Nothing is simple. The piano sounds in another room. Notes swell and stop. Puckerbell and Rocket Man. 3. Someone's shack is safe, someone's not. All that's in the air is damp and dry. Life comes again, the dense spondee of too much sense. Ash air, sound wave, end loss. My son's trying out a new piece. Space, dementia. So that poem was from my collection Kin. This next poem is from my latest book on arrivals of breath. And it's called The Sense is Porous to the Thing. There's an epigraph. Poetry is perhaps this, an Artem vendor, a turning of the breath. Paul Celan, The Meridian. You say the thing is ash. Ash is the thing. You defy Adorno, cut the breath, say cinders are in your eyes. To turn the breath, you whet the eye. When flesh opens between fringed curves, a soft gasp bends the light. A child brings sun to a point on the page. Retina burns for an instant. To invert the grape, mind decodes as an eye, as love trodden into words. As if to say, this thing survives otherwise. As if poetry were a bone sliver picked from ash. Your thought, if not joy, is a tendering of flesh deprived of saying that says, write me, where cells become breath to char the page. A wildfire is another thing. When wind arrives from the bush, a cornea itches. A retinal stamp is turned upright by the synapse that links and sifts the organ of memory for a word that might turn the breath. It is time, you say. It is time. Time is this sliver between ash and the thing. And I'd also like to read a poem, I guess about climate change. It appeared first in Rabbit and then in our book, Hope for Whole, Poets Speak Up to Adani, published at Plumwood Mountain Journal. Earth, this is an alphabetic poem. Earth interview in the Anthropocene. And I guess there's the conceit that Earth might speak back in an alphabetic language. An alphabetic language is not mine. It was always mine. Before you spoke, before you wrote it, a language in which you asked me to speak about climate, one of my truer tongues. You do not invent it any more than you did dinosaurs. You might think that I only react to outside events, asteroids, meteorites, humankind, your few fallen into prosperity. I act with the grace of my law. It is not human. I do not resist, nor do I conspire. Multiple I am always the more that you cannot escape. This is joy and jeopardy for you, that the things you require, you kill. What is it like, you ask me, to be under the Anthropocene like you? You have read the Enuma Elish, how even the mighty ancient gods had unruly children. I do not call you my children. The relationship, our relationship, is more complex. Parenthood is a cliche proffered to simplify. It is a cliche to say you arrived late after many emergents, lateness a quality you took for first place, as if you were last, would last, outlast a ration of being. If you ask me, it is like the shiver riding at speed. I throw up cyclone and storm, hurricane, typhoon, languages for them, drought, fire, each in its place, not undoing cycles. They were always infused with chaos, but the vigour has changed, is ever changing. I am changed. Weather is my stirring cloak, your X-rated news, my habitat, my atmosphere, and yes, you are right to notice the difference, to consider zoology, to recall your zooid entanglements, your species of geology. And last, I'll read another recent poem. This one is coming out sometime this year in Verity La, and I thank Robbie Coburn and Michelle Seminara. Grasp. Stippled hands circumnavigate a dial, as if they were windows on a mortal infinity, the kind a mathematician finds countable. Trout glisten under corrugated water as it clears, a shiver of scale. You try to recollect the name, a scope that threw out rainbow curves of sign, how, before that sliver of near stars, you did not know distance as chronology. It is always the impossible. Can a child pace out a light year, knowing what packet spills from astral fires, saying, we are nothing but ourselves? Thank you.